Craig Lindsay from Resolution Minerals. Craig, there's so much news, I'm not sure where to start other than congratulations. Resolution is at the right place at the right time. For those of you that are not familiar with Resolution Minerals, how about we start there? And how about you explain to our audience why I am so correct in my assessment?
Sure. Well, Tracy, firstly, it's real nice to be with you today. I appreciate you taking the time. So I'm the CEO, U.S. Operations for Resolution, and we're listed on the ASX under the symbol RML, and we also have an OTCQB listing in the U.S., and we're in the process of a NASDAQ listing. At the 40,000 foot level, we are a critical metals story with a project in Idaho. It's a 15,000 acre project that's immediately adjacent to Perpetua's Stibnite Gold Project. It's a past producer. So the Horse Heaven project produced antimony out of about 3,000 feet of historic trenches where the U.S. government went in the First World War, the Second World War, and even in the Korean War and stripped out high-grade antimony right out of these trenches at surface. And when I say high grade, what's exciting, we consider high grade to be 30 to 50% stibnite material. So this is compared to Perpetua next door, where their antimony grades are in the 0.5% to 1% range. So we've got this high grade material right at surface that produced historically. We're aggressively moving that project forward. And then we have a second target that we call Golden Gate. And Golden Gate is a past producing tungsten mine. The Golden Gate tungsten mine produced from the 1950s right up to 1980. And it was a high grade underground mine. Didn't produce a lot, but it produced in about in between 1.5% and 2% range for tungsten. When you look at those kind of production grades in Korea, the deposits over there are kind of a 0.5% tungsten. So it was a high grade producer. We've acquired a historic processing mill that was right adjacent to the Horse Heaven project called the Johnson Creek Mill. The project has tungsten stockpiles that we're going to get processed. And then, we've got this critical metals thematic. That's what gets me excited, and that's what gets me going in the morning. But sitting in the background is a very large and growing gold story. And at Golden Gate, we're in the process of drilling about 13,700 meters. It's over about 45 holes. We've completed 33 holes to date. We're going to be finished our program middle of September, and we just started putting out news at Golden Gate. And Golden Gate, this is intrusion-related gold system. It's a direct analogy to the Perpetua story next door. We put in about 14 holes last year, and we got some spectacular results from a gold perspective. This Golden Gate, it's about 2 kilometers long, and at Golden Gate North, first holes we drilled were 150 meters of 1.5 grams, 250 meters of 1.5 grams per ton. So a huge hole up north. The first holes that we've issued this year at Golden Gate South, we just announced this week on our first 3 holes. And the first hole we knocked out was 304 meters of 0.64 grams per ton. And that's 2 kilometers south of Golden Gate North. And that's why, from a gold perspective, for those gold bugs out there, this has the potential to be a very large gold story as a backstop to this critical metals thematic that we're so excited about.
For those of you wanting to learn more, again, you just announced the drilling results for the Golden Gate Gold Project, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and Golden Gate is a prospect. It's a target within the Horse Heaven project.
Okay, and for those of you out there going, Horse Heaven, again, Idaho, correct?
Idaho, 15,000 acres, 100% ownership interest, and we're immediately adjacent to the Perpetua Resources Stibnite Gold Project. And as your listeners will know, Perpetua is about a 3.2 billion US dollar market cap company. We are sitting around $100 million market cap, Australian dollar perspective.
Of course, you're heading towards the NASDAQ. That is the goal. Perpetua is, of course, everybody knows, is building a multi-billion-dollar mine for antimony, gold and antimony, correct?
Correct. And they're doing a great job. Wonderful people over at Perpetua. They've done an amazing job dealing with a very challenging permitting situation. They've kept their shoulder to it. They've got that permit. They've got XM funding. This is a $3 billion project. A lot of eyes on it. They've got government support. And we're right next door to them. And again, a direct geologic analog. So it's funny, you get analysts and the like investors rolling by our project on their way to Stibnite, and we've got our signs up there, and they're kind of, hey, what are these guys at Resolution doing? And I really consider the Horse Heaven project to be Stibnite 2.0. That's how I market the story, and it's promotional to an extent, and it might drive Perpetua crazy when I call it Stibnite 2.0, but that's really what we've got. It's a direct geologic analog.
Of course, I love your cell line. Developing an end-to-end solution for America's domestic antimony, gold, and tungsten supply. It seems as if the government is paying attention to you with you recently securing the White House Fast 41 transparency coverage for the Golden Gate tungsten gold target. Can you tell our audience what that means?
Yeah, so we've got Fast 41 coverage from it's the Permitting Council, which is a government kind of sponsored entity. And the focus of Fast 41 is just on accelerating and streamlining permitting in the United States. So we are now under a permitting regime where instead of it being open-ended, it's time-based, which is fantastic. And it's putting your regulatory folks, the permitting guys, it's putting them in an uncomfortable situation that they're not necessarily used to, because they're now under this time-based permitting regime. But it's great for us because we now have some certainty around permitting. And one of the neat things, yes, we've got Fast 41 coverage for Golden Gate, but we also have Fast 41 coverage for the Antimony Ridge project, which is the second target within the Horse Heaven project. So I think we're the only company out there with two Fast 41s on one project. And I think that is a mark of the level of interest that the current administration has in what we're doing out there. And yes, we are drilling and we're moving into a maiden resource estimate that will come out at the first of the year, 2027, Q1 2027. But let's take a step back. And one of the biggest challenges in the United States is there's no domestic production, but it's this processing chokehold that's out there. And that's what the US government is really interested in, a processing solution. So we're pitching both a processing solution for antimony and tungsten, and we've brought in a full-time PhD metallurgist who did his PhD actually on antimony processing, and he's developing an internal hydromet processing solution for antimony, and we're also working on a similar story for tungsten right now, and that's getting traction in Washington.
I'm certain that is. Can you tell me where I could find more information on that? That's fascinating for all of us out there following the different technologies for these defense metals.
Yeah, well, our website is www.resolutionminerals.com. Um, One of the groups we're involved with down in the US is the Defense Industrial Base Consortium, which is a group of over 1,000 companies in the defense industry, upstream and downstream. And the members of that, the DIBC, we call it the Defense Industrial Base Consortium, that we get access to government funding opportunities in this space. And There's a website out there for that. Permitting.gov is the website for the Permitting Council, which provides a lot of information on the Fast 41 program. Um, so there's a lot of data points out there for investors to kind of look at what we're doing.
So, lots of things have happened since we spoke to you last. I thought the defense or the DIBC that you were talking about and being accepted into that was a significant achievement because it means you're on the radar for the Defense Department. So, what should shareholders be looking forward to in the next quarter? Because you guys are moving quickly.
Well, the next quarter, we've got about 42 more holes to announce through September, October, November. We'll get a mineral resource estimate out in the first quarter of 2027. On a parallel basis, you're going to see news coming out on progress we're making from the work we're doing from a metallurgical processing perspective. Uh, so it's going to be a news-rich environment for Resolution investors through the fall, and we're really excited about that. And then, yes, we are doing some door knocking down in the U.S. We've got this NASDAQ listing that we're working on. I can't give a time frame for when we're going to be up and trading on the NASDAQ. Uh, but we're very excited. We've had an amazing response from Australian investors to our story, and we've raised $47 million over the last 12 months. But U.S. capital markets are deep. There's a lot of interest in the whole critical metals thematic, not just from mining investors, but just from the generalist investor community. So we think we're going to be fairly well received, and hopefully that a NASDAQ listing is going to result in good liquidity and a revaluation of the company, particularly on the heels of the results that we're going to be issuing in the fall, as well as a mineral resource estimate.
An outstanding website for those of you seeking more information on this triple play gold, tungsten, and antimony. Please go to the following website. Craig, thank you for joining us today.
Tracy, great to be with you.